A jury in Marion County is recommending the death penalty for a man who killed his wife and 4 children.
Status that you qualify for the public defender's office, so I'm going to appoint the public defender to represent you.
Michael had been sexually abused by his step-uncle. He was about 5 or 6.
I think I'm going to ask you guys to leave.
Okay. Well, we're walking right out the front door right now.
The images I have of them running around my apartment.
Yeah, one of my guys on the floor. I'm not sure which one.
Okay. So you didn't like hire a crew to come do it?
Because what I'm going to assure is the integrity of this case is to its highest.
The discovery, unraveling a dark secret. In September 2019, a chilling revelation emerged from the depths of a quiet community in Summerfield, Florida. Michael Wayne Jones, a 41-year-old man, had been arrested in Brantley County, Georgia, following a single vehicle crash. However, what transpired in the aftermath of his arrest would unveil a horrific secret, sending shock waves through the nation and forever staining the memory of the Jones family. It all began when Jones, in a moment of chilling candor, informed law enforcement officials that his wife's lifeless body was inside a vehicle he had been driving. This revelation marked the first ominous sign that something deeply disturbing had occurred within the confines of the Jones household. Georgia and Marion County Sheriff's Office detectives were alerted to this gruesome revelation and immediately sprang into action. They accompanied Jones to the locations where he had left the bodies of his victims, not yet comprehending the horrifying extent of the tragedy that had unfolded.
News 4 Jax reporter Scott Johnson has been going through the evidence and is joining us from the newsroom with what he's discovered.
Tom, one thing we know is that investigators have a lot of evidence against him.
Body was found inside that van, and then they discovered the children's bodies in nearby Charlton County.
Because they are redacted due to the fact that they could be self-incriminating, including things he said to them. Some we can hear, others we can't.
As the investigation progressed, the horrifying truth began to emerge. Michael Wayne Jones, in a series of shocking confessions, admitted to the slaying of his wife Casey in a manner that defied comprehension. He had used a metal baseball bat, repeatedly striking her with a brutality that left investigators and the community aghast. However, the horrors didn't stop there. Jones, seemingly devoid of remorse, continued to confess to a series of slayings that were equally disturbing. He admitted slaying his 4 young children, Cameron, age 9, Preston, just 4 years old, Mark Kelly, a 2-year-old toddler, and the youngest, 11-month-old Ayana.
To the charges against you, second-degree murder under Florida Statute 782.04(2). At this time, you are charged with 1 count by warrant for this is a first-degree felony, which carries a probable life sentence.
The details surrounding their demises were as horrifying as they were heart-wrenching. The 2 youngest victims were Jones's daughters, innocent and full of potential. The older 2 were Casey's sons from a previous relationship, adding layers of complexity and tragedy to an already nightmarish scenario. Detectives believe that Jones had either drowned or strangled the children at different times on separate days, each act a chilling testament to the depths of darkness that had consumed him. The timeline of these heinous acts was equally distressing. Investigators pieced together a grim puzzle, revealing that these horrifying events had taken place between July 10 and the end of August 2019. The implications were staggering, and the community was left reeling from the revelation that such unimaginable horrors had occurred within their midst. The investigation, initially triggered by Jones's shocking confession, would go on to uncover the full extent of the tragedy that had unfolded within the Jones family. As details emerged, the community grappled with a profound shock and disbelief that such a horrifying secret could be hidden behind the closed doors of an apparently ordinary household. The discovery of these gruesome events sent shock waves not only through the community of Summerfield, but also throughout the nation. It served as a grim reminder that even within seemingly ordinary families, darkness and unspeakable horrors can lurk beneath the surface. The Jones family's horrifying secret, once uncovered, would leave an indelible mark on the collective conscience of a community left grappling with unimaginable loss and the haunting question of how such a tragedy could have occurred. The revelation of this dark secret was the first chapter in a harrowing journey of justice, healing, and the search for answers. It was a moment that would forever haunt those who had come into contact with the case, a chilling reminder of the need for vigilance in recognizing the signs of domestic violence and the urgency of providing support and intervention before it is too late. The Jones household before the tragedy. In the quiet community of Summerfield, Florida, the Jones family appeared from the outside to be an ordinary family striving to lead a peaceful life. Michael Wayne Jones, a 41-year-old man, his wife Casey, and their 4 children, Cameron, Preston, Merkelly, and Ayana, were seemingly living a typical suburban existence. However, beneath the veneer of normalcy, a sinister and tragic story was unfolding. Michael Wayne Jones, known to friends and neighbors as a reserved and unassuming man, had a past that hinted at the darkness that would eventually consume him. Born into a troubled family, Jones had experienced a tumultuous childhood marked by instability and adversity. His upbringing would later be cited as a possible factor contributing to the horrifying events that would transpire. Casey, Jones's wife and the mother of 4 children, was described by those who know her as a caring and devoted mother. She too had her own history of challenges, but she seemed committed to providing a stable and loving home for her family. Friends and family members remember her as a dedicated parent who always put her children's well-being first. The 4 children, Cameron, Preston, Merkelly, and Ayana, embodied the innocence and promise of youth. Cameron, the eldest at just 9 years old, was known for his playful spirit and love for adventure. Preston, aged 4, was a typical energetic and curious toddler. Merkelly, the 2-year-old sister, and Ayana, the youngest and only 11 months, were still in the early stages of their development, full of potential and wonder. To those in their community, the Jones family was like any other, a tight-knit unit facing the challenges of life together. They lived in a modest suburban home, played in the neighborhood, and participated in community events. On the surface, they were unremarkable, blending seamlessly into the fabric of their surroundings. However, the facade of normality concealed a darker reality. Behind closed doors, the family struggled with internal conflicts which would ultimately culminate in a tragedy of unimaginable proportions. Michael Wayne Jones, plagued by personal demons and mental health issues, was facing a breaking point. His past, riddled with instability, had left scars that would later manifest in shocking ways. As the months passed, the strain within the family seemed to intensify. The exact nature of the conflicts and tensions that festered within the household remained concealed from the prying eyes of neighbors and friends. The community had no inkling of the horrors that would soon be exposed. The events leading up to the tragedy that unfolded in November 2019 remained largely shrouded in secrecy. It was a family that appeared to be, by all appearances, trying to keep their struggles hidden from the world. Little did anyone know that the Jones family was teetering on the precipice of a horrifying abyss. In September of that year, the facade crumbled and the truth was revealed in the most shocking and devastating manner. The events that transpired during that fateful month would forever alter the lives of those involved and send shock waves through the community of Summerfield and beyond. In the aftermath of the shocking revelations, the community and the nation would grapple with the profound loss of 5 innocent lives and search for answers as to how such a tragedy could have occurred within the confines of a seemingly ordinary household. The story of the Jones family serves as a stark reminder of the importance of recognizing the signs of domestic violence and mental health struggles and the need for support and intervention before it is too late.
He and his wife, Casey Jones, were getting a divorce and that he wanted to stay with her here.
My understanding of their relationship at that point was that it was a bit contentious. Yeah, I mean, why them and not us?
Michael Jones' ex-wife, Sarah, tells me she is devastated.
The images I have of them running around my apartment.
That he could have killed his family or left their dead bodies in his van right outside her apartment.
And he seemed to think that she was doing something devious.
At her apartment in Jacksonville so he could spend time with their 3 children. She says she didn't see any signs.
He was playing with his kids every day. He was taking them to the pool.
Confession and shock. In November, the community of Summerfield, Florida was left in a state of shock and disbelief when Michael Wayne Jones, a 41-year-old man, made a horrifying confession. Jones pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree slaying and 1 count of second-degree slaying, admitting to the violent 2019 slayings of his wife Casey and her 4 children, aged 1 to 10. This chilling admission marked the beginning of a deeply disturbing chapter in the community's history. The circumstances surrounding Jones's confession were haunting.
And not only do detectives have his confession, they also have a mountain of evidence.
People had different reactions to the jury's decision. Some say he deserved the death penalty,
I think it should be up to the family members of the deceased.
while others say he should spend life in prison.
Decide if they want to see this man put to death or if they want to know that he's rotting away.
After murdering his wife following a domestic dispute where Casey Jones accused him of cheating.
The case bypassed the traditional trial process as part of a plea deal, plunging directly into the penalty phase. This phase tasked jurors with grave responsibility of deciding whether Michael Wayne Jones would face life in prison or the demise penalty. It was unprecedented admission of guilt that sent shock waves through the legal system. The Marion County jury, composed of 10 men and 5 women, was exposed to the gruesome details of the crime during the trial. Assistant State Attorney Amy Byrne painted a horrifying picture describing how Jones had brutally slayed his wife, Casey Jones, aged 32, and subsequently savagely slayed her 4 children. 2 of these children were fathered by another man, adding a layer of complexity and tragedy to the already horrifying narrative. Jones's confession provided a shocking timeline of events. He disclosed that he had first slayed Casey Jones on July 10, 2019, following an alleged accusation of infidelity. In a gruesome account detailed in a 142-page police report, Jones claimed that his wife had nudged him with a metal baseball bat before he brutally beat her to demise. This chilling act occurred while the children slept unaware in their family home. After committing this heinous act, Jones attempted to conceal the evidence by placing Casey's lifeless body in a tote bag and cleaning up the blood. The gruesome aftermath of his actions was evident as Casey's blood was found on the floors and ceiling of their family residence. Following Casey's slaying, the 2 stepsons, Cameron and Preston, spent 2 weeks with their biological father, while the 2 younger daughters, Markelly Jones, aged 2, and Ayanna Jones, just 11 months old, were sent to stay with Casey's mother. Jones, however, did not stop at the slaying of his wife. He provided a deeply disturbing account to the police regarding the slayings of the stepsons when they returned between August 10 and August 22 of the same year. In a chilling revelation, he described manually strangling Cameron and using a knee to compress his chest to ensure he could not breathe. Cameron's lifeless body was placed in a suitcase. The next night, he turned his attention to Preston, using a zip tie to strangle the 4-year-old, as his hands were hurting from strangling Cameron. Additionally, Jones admitted to placing a rag in a bathroom drain and drowning Preston under running water. The details were gruesome and horrifying. Jones confessed to using kitty litter to absorb bodily fluids while storing the boys' bodies in the family home for several weeks. The horrors escalated further when he drowned each of the 2 young daughters in the bathtub upon their return from their grandmother's care, storing their lifeless bodies in a tote bin. The public reaction to this shocking revelation was one of profound shock and disbelief. The community of Summerfield and the nation at large were left reeling from the horrifying details of the case. Jones's actions were a terrifying manifestation of pure evil, and the community struggled to come to terms with the unimaginable horrors that occurred within their midst. The circumstances surrounding Michael Wayne Jones's confession were a grim reminder of the capacity for darkness that can exist even in seemingly ordinary households. The public's initial reaction was one of horror and sorrow as the nation grappled with the profound shock of such heinous crimes. The victims, remembering the lives lost. The horrifying tragedy surrounding the slayings committed by Michael Wayne Jones in 2019 not only sent shockwaves through the community but also left behind a devastating impact on the lives of the victims, Cameron, Preston, Merkelly, Ayanna, and Casey. Remembering these innocent lives and the impact of their loss is a somber reminder of the profound grief that lingers in the wake of such a heinous crime. Cameron Bowers, age 9. Cameron was a 9-year-old boy full of youthful energy and curiosity. He was known for his vibrant personality and infectious laughter. Cameron enjoyed exploring the outdoors, riding his bike, and playing with his friends. He had a fondness for animals, often expressing a desire to become a veterinarian when he grew up. His tragic loss left a void in the hearts of those who knew him as they remembered his bright smile and boundless enthusiasm. Preston Bowers, age 4. Preston, at the tender age of 4, was a sweet and lively child. He possessed a charming innocence that endeared him to everyone he met. He was fond of toys and games, and he loved spending time with his family. His loss was a heartbreaking reminder of the innocence of childhood cut short and left a profound impact on the community, which mourned the loss of such a young life. Merkelly Jones, age 2. Merkelly, just 2 years old, was a toddler full of curiosity and wonder. Her budding personality showed signs of a spirited and adventurous spirit. She enjoyed exploring her surroundings, and her laughter brought joy to those around her. Her untimely passing left a deep sense of sorrow as the community grieved the loss of a young life with so much potential. Ayanna Jones, age 11 months. Ayanna, the youngest of the victims at just 11 months, was a precious baby who had yet to fully discover the world around her. Her innocence and vulnerability touched the hearts of those who knew her. Ayanna's life was tragically cut short before she had the chance to take her first step or utter her first words. Her loss was a painful reminder of the innocence of infancy and the tragedy of a life barely begun. Casey Jones, 32 years old. Casey, age 32, was not only a victim but also a mother and wife whose life was brutally taken by her husband. She was described as a loving and caring mother, deeply devoted to her children. Casey's loss was not only a personal tragedy for her family but also a heartbreaking reminder of the devastating impact of domestic violence on individuals and families. Her memory served as a poignant symbol of the need for support and intervention in cases of misuse. The loss of these 5 innocent lives left an indelible mark on the community, which mourned not only the tragic demises but also the unfulfilled potential and the profound sorrow of their families. Their memories serve as a stark reminder of the importance of recognizing and addressing domestic violence and its devastating consequences. The impact of their loss extended far beyond their immediate circle, touching the hearts of all those who learned of their tragic fate and reinforcing the urgency of preventing such senseless acts of violence.
He was talking about a future with them. There was absolutely nothing that...
Jones says her heart goes out to Casey Jones's family. She said she was a wonderful mother.
I have never been a fan of the death penalty, but to be very honest with you, these are those cases would have piqued in my mind to say, oh my gosh, I think he did something.
Legal proceedings. Following Michael Wayne Jones's chilling confession to the heinous slayings of his wife and her 4 children, the legal process embarked on a challenging journey that would ultimately lead to a jury trial. The steps that followed his confession were marked by the pursuit of justice and the determination to hold him accountable for his horrifying crimes. The legal proceedings commenced with Jones's arrest in Brantley County, Georgia in September 2019 after he was involved in a single vehicle crash. During his arrest, he disturbingly revealed that his wife's body was in the vehicle. This admission set the stage for a thorough investigation into the demise of Casey Jones and her 4 children. Jones's confession during the subsequent police interviews provided critical details about the timeline and nature of the crimes. As the investigation unfolded, the prosecution faced a significant decision regarding the appropriate punishment for Michael Wayne Jones. Given the heinous nature of the crimes and the loss of 5 innocent lives, the prosecution chose to seek the demise penalty. This decision was based on the severity of the offenses and the pursuit of the most severe legal consequences available under the law. The legal process also involved the intricate and crucial task of jury selection. A jury trial is a fundamental component of the American legal system, and selecting impartial jurors was essential to ensure a fair and just trial for Jones. The process of jury selection aimed to identify individuals who could impartially assess the evidence and make an objective determination regarding his guilt and, if applicable, the appropriate punishment. Prospective jurors were carefully vetted to ensure that they had no preconceived biases or conflicts of interest that could compromise the fairness of the trial. The goal was to assemble a jury that could objectively evaluate the evidence presented during the trial and make an impartial decision based on the facts and the law. Throughout this phase, the prosecution and the defense would engage in a meticulous process of questioning potential jurors to identify any potential biases or disqualifications. The final composition of the jury would play a pivotal role in determining Jones's fate, including whether he would face the demise penalty or life in prison. The legal proceedings that followed Jones's confession were characterized by a commitment to upholding the principles of justice and ensuring a fair trial. The decision to seek the demise penalty and the careful selection of jurors underscored the gravity of the case and the solemn responsibility of the legal system to deliver justice for the victims and their grieving families. The trial. The trial of Michael Wayne Jones was an arduous legal process, one that unfolded with the singular goal of bringing justice to the heinous slayings of his wife, Casey, and her 4 young children.
So I'm going to appoint a public defender to represent you. Application for criminal indigent status that you qualify for the public defender's office. I will tell you that your next court date, that will be your arraignment, and your arraignment is the hearing at which you will enter a formal plea. It's scheduled for October the 22nd at 9 o'clock in the morning.
This trial was marked by a profound presentation of evidence, harrowing witness testimonies, and a verdict that reflected the gravity of the crimes committed. Throughout the trial, the prosecution left no stone unturned in its quest to establish the guilt of Michael Wayne Jones. The evidence presented was nothing short of staggering. Forensic analysis, meticulous crime scene investigations, and the stark documentation of extensive blood stains found within the family residence painted a chilling and irrefutable picture of the brutality that had transpired. The physical evidence served as a haunting backdrop to the proceedings, compelling those in the courtroom to confront the gruesome reality of the crimes. However, it was the witness testimonies that breathed life into the trial, offering a deeply personal and often gut-wrenching perspective on the events leading up to the slayings and the horrifying details of the crimes themselves. Family members, friends, and individuals connected to the case stepped forward to share their experiences and interactions with Michael Wayne Jones and Casey, each testimony adding another layer to the complex narrative. These testimonies served as windows into the dynamics of the household, shedding light on a troubling history of misuse within the family. They revealed the fear of manipulation that had festered behind closed doors, hidden from the prying eyes of neighbors and friends. The witnesses painted a portrait of a family marked by turmoil and suffering, a family that would ultimately be shattered by an unfathomable act of violence. Assistant State Attorney Amy Berndt, the prosecutor leading the case, delivered a compelling narrative that held the courtroom in rapt attention. Her vivid descriptions of the acts committed by Michael Wayne Jones were designed to sear into the collective memory of the jury. She emphasized the brutal slaying of Casey, recounting how she had been brutally slayed before her 4 children were savagely slayed. Bernst's powerful and evocative presentation aimed to ensure that the jury comprehended the full extent of the horrors inflicted by Jones. The jury, comprised of individuals tasked with the solemn responsibility of determining the appropriate punishment for Michael Wayne Jones, bore a heavy burden. They meticulously reviewed the evidence, listened intently to the heart-wrenching testimonies, and weighed the gravity of the crimes. After due deliberation, the jury arrived at a unanimous recommendation: the demise penalty for Jones. This unanimous decision spoke volumes about the severity of the crimes and the collective judgment that such a punishment was warranted. It was a resounding statement that the community, through its representatives in the legal system, would not countenance acts of extreme violence, particularly when they led to the loss of innocent lives. The verdict, delivered with a weight of collective conscience, was left a solemn moment that left an indelible impression on all present. It underscored the magnitude of the crimes committed and the understanding that justice demanded the harshest penalty available under the law. In that unanimous recommendation for the demise penalty, the community and the legal system affirmed their commitment to holding individuals accountable for their actions and ensuring justice for the victims and their grieving families. The trial of Michael Wayne Jones was a stark reminder of the horrors that occurred behind closed doors, hidden from view. It was a testament to the unwavering commitment of the legal system to seek justice for the most vulnerable in society and to hold perpetrators accountable for their deeds. The presentation of evidence, the heart-wrenching witness testimonies, and the jury's unanimous verdict collectively reinforced the fundamental principle that society would not tolerate acts of violence that led to the tragic loss of innocent lives.
Here, I've just got to make contact with the attorney's office, and obviously you know that there's going to be more charges forthcoming. Of course. Okay. You're going to be charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Yeah. Okay. On top of the second-degree murder. Yeah.
Sentencing and consequences. The sentencing phase of Michael Wayne Jones's trial marked a crucial juncture in the pursuit of justice for the heinous slayings of his wife, Casey, and her 4 children. With the evidence presented, testimonies heard, and the jury's unanimous recommendation for the demise penalty, all eyes turned to Judge Anthony Taddy, who held the solemn responsibility of delivering the final ruling. Judge Taddy's decision was rendered during a hearing at the Marion County Judicial Center in Ocala, Florida, on a solemn day that carried the weight of profound sorrow and the quest for justice. The courtroom was a somber setting, filled with the families of the victims, legal professionals, and members of the community who had closely followed the trial proceedings. The sentencing phase unfolded with a sense of gravity that matched the magnitude of the crimes committed by Michael Wayne Jones. Having pleaded guilty to 4 counts of first-degree slaying and 1 count of second-degree slaying, Jones had waived the need for a traditional trial. Instead, the proceedings delved straight into the penalty phase, where the jury's role was to recommend either the demise penalty or life in prison. Throughout the penalty phase, the defense system, led by Executive Assistant Public Defender John Spivey, was relentless in its effort to spare Jones from the demise penalty. They presented a comprehensive case, highlighting Jones's troubled upbringing, mental health issues, and significant psychological problems. Their argument was that these factors had played a critical role in shaping Jones's actions and that life in prison was a more appropriate punishment.
Michael Wayne Jones off of death row.
TV20's Taylor Simpson tells us who they brought to the witness stand in his defense.
The man who was convicted of murdering his wife and 4 kids returned to the classroom today.
Defense and the state asked questions to a neuropsychologist. Jones faces the death penalty. Throughout the hearing, a few times Michael Wayne Jones balled up his hands and placed them over his eyes after killing his wife and his 4 children. His defense attorneys brought in neuropsychologists.
On the opposing side, Assistant State Attorneys Amy Brent and Rich Buxman vehemently argued in favor of the demise penalty, citing several aggravating factors in the case that in their view made it the appropriate punishment. The prosecution was resolute in seeking the harshest possible penalty for Jones, emphasizing the brutality of the crimes and the profound loss suffered by the victims' families. Judge Taddy was faced with the unenviable task of weighing these arguments, considering the evidence, and ultimately delivering a ruling that would have far-reaching consequences. His decision was eagerly anticipated by those present in the courtroom, as it held the power to bring a sense of closure to the victims' families and to the community at large. When Judge Taddy began to deliver his ruling, the courtroom fell into an eerie silence. The gravity of the moment hung heavy in the air. He acknowledged the horrific nature of the crimes committed by Jones, describing them as unimaginable and indescribable. Judge Taddy recognized the profound loss endured by the victims' families, whose lives had been forever altered by these senseless acts of violence. In his ruling, Judge Taddy imposed the demise penalty for the slayings of the 4 children. It was a momentous decision that sent a clear message about the severity of the crimes. The courtroom was filled with a mixture of emotions, from the somber relief of the victims' families to the shock and disbelief of Jones' supporters. For the slaying of Casey, Judge Taddy imposed a life sentence in prison. The decision recognized the importance of accountability for Jones' actions but stopped short of the ultimate punishment. The contrast in sentencing between slayings of the children and that of Casey underscored the nuanced legal considerations that guided Judge Taddy's decision. Reactions to Judge Taddy's ruling were as varied as the emotions that permeated the courtroom. The father of Cameron and Preston, the 2 stepsons had lost their lives at the hands of Jones, declined to comment. He had endured the agonizing trial proceedings and the revelations of the brutality inflicted upon his children. Prosecutors, on the other hand, expressed satisfaction with the ruling, stating that they were pleased that the families of the victims had received the justice they deserved. The prosecution's unwavering commitment to seeking the demise penalty had been validated by Judge Taddy's decision. Outside the courtroom, Executive Assistant Public Defender John Spivey shared his perspective with a Star Banner reporter. He acknowledged that the judge's decision had not come as a surprise, as the defense had been anticipating the outcome. In preparation for the possibility of a demise sentence, Spivey and the defense team had already filed documents for an appeal. Spivey further revealed that he and his team had spent weeks preparing Jones for the potential of a demise sentence. He described Jones as having adjusted to his fate. It was a sobering reflection of the profound consequences of the ruling on Jones's life. Spivey also emphasized the challenges faced by Jones, who lacked financial resources and support. In an effort to maintain contact with their client, the defense had purchased an iPad for Jones, recognizing the isolation and separation that awaited him in prison. In the aftermath of Judge Teddy's ruling, the community of Summerfield and the wider public grappled with a mix of emotions. The sentencing marked the conclusion of a painful chapter, but it did not erase the deep scars left by the crimes. The consequences of the ruling would reverberate through the lives of those directly affected by the tragedy and serve as a reminder of the enduring impact of senseless violence. Judge Anthony Taddy's decision to impose the demise penalty for the slayings of the 4 children and a life sentence for Casey slaying was a reflection of the legal system's commitment to delivering justice. It underscored the principle that those who commit heinous acts of violence will be held accountable for their actions. In the end, the sentencing and its consequences serve as a solemn reminder of the profound and lasting impact of such crimes on individuals, families, and communities. Community impact, healing, and advocacy. The tragic events that unfolded in Summerfield left an indelible mark on the community, sparking a profound response that extended far beyond the courtroom. As the community grappled with the unimaginable loss of Casey and her 4 children, it also found strength in unity and resilience, driving efforts to raise awareness about domestic violence and igniting a broader conversation about family violence on both local and national scales. The impact of the case on the Summerfield community was immediate and profound. Neighbors, friends, and even strangers were deeply affected by the loss of 5 lives within their midst. The shockwaves of the tragedy reverberated through the close-knit community, leaving many struggling to come to terms with the enormity of the crimes. In response to the tragedy, the Summerfield community rallied together, offering support to the grieving families and organizing vigils to remember the victims. These gatherings provided opportunity for community members to share their grief, offer comfort, and stand in solidarity with those who had lost loved ones. The sense of unity that emerged during this difficult time served as a source of strength for a community in mourning. One of the most significant impacts of the case was the increased awareness of domestic violence. The horrifying nature of the crimes committed by Michael Wayne Jones shone a spotlight on the pervasive issue of domestic violence, prompting important conversations about the signs, prevention, and support available to victims. Advocacy organizations, local agencies, and community leaders seized the opportunity to raise awareness about domestic violence and provide resources to those in need. They organized awareness campaigns, distributed informational materials, and hosted workshops to educate the community about the dynamics of domestic violence and the availability avenues for seeking help and support. The tragedy also spurred discussions about the importance of early intervention and support for individuals facing abusive situations. It became evident that domestic violence was not an isolated issue, but one that required a collective effort to address. Local and national conversations began to center around the need for increased funding for domestic violence programs, improved access to counseling services, and better legal protections for victims. The impact of the Summerfield case extended beyond the local community, resonating with people across the nation. The horrifying details of the slayings and the subsequent legal proceedings serve as a stark reminder of the profound consequences of family violence. The case was covered extensively by media outlets, drawing attention to the importance of addressing domestic violence on a broader scale. National advocacy groups and lawmakers took note of the case, using it as a catalyst for legislative action and policy changes aimed at protecting victims of domestic violence. The tragic loss of Casey and her children became a rallying cry for advocates fighting to ensure that no one else would suffer a similar fate. In the years that followed, the Summerfield case continued to serve as a stark reminder of the enduring impact of family violence and the need for ongoing efforts to prevent and address it. The victims were not forgotten, and their legacy lived on in the advocacy work, support services, and policy initiatives that sought to honor their memory by preventing future tragedies. The Summerfield community, scarred by profound loss it had endured, found strength in coming together and advocating for change. Through shared grief, awareness campaigns, and a commitment to supporting victims, the community demonstrated its resilience in the face of tragedy. The impact of this case, both locally and nationally, served as a testament to the enduring power of community, advocacy, and the pursuit of justice in the wake of unspeakable violence. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.